No, just speaking about not living up to their promises, what is the United States leaving the Paris Accord mean to the world? Because I remember the last conversation I had with you. You said, Rahul, live the next 10 years of your life like they're your last, because the world is going to change so badly that you're not going to be able to recognize it. So, what does it mean? That you said people are supposed to keep up with their promises. So the Paris Accord is basically a promise, but most promises are made to be broken, and they are, I think,
Yeah,
in this
it's a,
case.
it's a voluntary agreement, right? Like we, on a goodwill, the countries have signed, have committed to reduce their carbon emissions by certain percentage. Normally, like most of countries, because everyone has different responsibilities, right? Like not everyone contributes in the same way to climate change or to global warming. So talking about the top countries, normally most of them have committed around over 20 percentage of carbon emissions reductions, and that is not enough. That is the truth. So even if they have committed, and that is going to require a massive amount of change, radical change in policy, in private sector, and the collaboration of citizens, it is not enough to keep us on a safe climate trend. Emissions need to peak in 2020 and then start declining at a very fast pace of around 7.6% per annum. If we want to stay within this threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius. The reality is that every year emissions keep going up, and every year keeps concentrating more greenhouse gas emissions than the year before. So we're very good at creating more carbon emissions, but we're not good at all at reducing them. And this is it. This year, it should be reducing at a fast speed. And what we're finding is that thanks to coronavirus, it has dropped for the first time since the last economic recession, because economic recession seems to be the only way that we can reduce emissions.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is not because we are changing and being more conscious and willing to reduce our emissions and change our ways. It is because there's an economic depression that forces us to not produce and consume as much as we do normally.
God, it's a byproduct of the crisis that we have. So you're saying in 2008 again, did we see any change, like a positive change?
Yeah, there was a little dip, not good enough to keep us on track of what we have to do, but it was a little dip.
Okay.
Just like this year, the year hasn't ended, and in the peak of the pandemic, around April, we were able to reduce carbon emissions by 17%. 17%, which is great. I'm talking about an average, right? So average emissions in the world, it's 17% reductions. As soon as we start to some countries to start coming out of the, I'm not going to say the pandemic is not over, but there's to relax the measures and people start going back to normal, then these emissions, this big gap that we have, and it was reducing, we were very happy to see that, at least for the wrong reasons, we were doing actually on time. But now, until today, this 17% has been reduced to 5%. Because everyone is flying now again. Everyone is trying to just recover the lost time we had. And everyone is just consuming online like crazy. And the worst is to come because Christmas is around the corner. So we will see, at least in the southern hemisphere, now we start into summer and all that. So people are desperate to go out of lockdown and spend holidays and travel and just consumption and carbon emissions everywhere. So we are really, really disappointed to see that we didn't learn anything. We were just forced, hidden by fear of getting infected and die and suffer. And that was the only way to keep us quiet. But during this pandemic, it was very clear to me who is responsible of the majority of environmental chaos, right? So humans, as soon as humans stayed quiet,
Yeah.
quality of water recovered so rapidly, the quality in the air recovered so rapidly, carbon emissions dropped amazingly. Like, it's no excuse. Like, it's us. It's
Yeah.
pretty.
Dude, the visibility from my house, the terrace in my building where I stay, it was so incredible. It's like, I mean, I live in Mumbai. Mumbai is extremely polluted. I mean, you would know that. The, the visibility was so incredible. I could see from, I live in the middle of the island. I can see all the way to the south from the terrace. It was incredible. Not just here, everywhere in the world. And that
Yeah.
fact you're saying that the chief cause of all these problems is the human being, if we start that conversation, this podcast is going to go on for days because I've got so many concepts based on that. It's not just my concept, it's a concept which is out there, but which I agree with. But like you said,
It's just a fact.
it's a fact. And like you said, the world's not going to come to an end. The world as we know it is going to come to an end. Perhaps humanity might come to an end. So I'm not saying I'm not advocating the end of humanity, but I mean, we can certainly take measures to stop uh, the world from changing the way it is. So yeah, so if the United States leaves the Paris Accord, which it has, right, it's just gonna just saying I'm not gonna keep up with these promises and I'm just gonna produce whatever I want, right?
Well, the issue with the Paris Agreement is that it's not a binding agreement.
Yeah.
So that's my understanding. That we will see countries like USA. I was about to say China, but China surprisingly has announced a new commitment to be carbon neutral. We don't see that kind of behavior in USA. It's totally they're dropping, the Paris Agreement, saying we don't want to collaborate with the world. We don't care. All this is an invention from the Chinese.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, with that ridiculous leadership, being one of the most responsible countries for this global warming, it's just a massive disappointment for all humanity.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too political about this, but just from the scientific point of view, if you are the biggest bullies of the world in the environment, because mere consumption, Americans consume more than anyone else, and now China is number one, but since 2005, China has been leading the top of the list of countries contributing to global warming, and but at the same time, China has ambition targets to produce renewable energy. No one deploys more renewable energy than China.
Really?
Yeah. China is like all on the go. China knows that's the future, and it's embracing it, and it's investing big time. Probably because if you don't do as they say, literally, heads are gonna roll.
Yeah.
So they're really good at getting their commitments and goals in place. Because it's a dictatorship, right? But in our democracies, it's so difficult to get agreement on something. So the Paris Agreement is not a binding agreement, and what I think is going to happen, we're going to see many countries saying, we're sorry, we tried our best, but we didn't meet our targets.
Yeah.
Which mainly it's condemning us to experience the worst of global warming. So right now there's a lot of advocacy because the Paris Agreement is going to be reviewed every 5 years, right? So we need to make sure that we're on track, and the ambitions of the goals and the targets that every country set for themselves, and they're committing to that, they need to be reviewed and can change according to the context.
Correct.
So again, science is driving this. It's not a political party. It's not the government, the United Nations as an entity that governs every decision. This is based on science, and science is telling us we need to move quick, as soon as possible, at a rate of reductions of 7.6% per year, starting in 2020. So the fact that we already were ahead of the game with 17% reduction, and we came back to 5% today, we don't know how we're going to end the year after Christmas comes around, and so we still have a lot of work to do. And if I may, this offers a very clear sign of the magnitude of the effort that is required as humanity to reduce the emissions at that rate, because it was needed a pandemic for us to be able to reduce emissions. And nothing is said yet. Like we may not reduce 1% of the global emissions, because probably by the end of December, probably it turns out that we actually increased by 1%. So again, it's more than last year. So we need to be very conscious that we shouldn't feel desperate to go out and travel and consume and go back to business as usual. We cannot go back to business as usual, because that normality, that business as usual, was the problem in the first place.
Yeah.
And we're depressed. Is where we keep consuming. We're being brainwashed. The economy grows and grows and grows, but humans are not happier and more prosper, or the well-being is not there.
That's true.
So we really need. It's a great chance to bounce back better.